She was beaten and left in a coma while pregnant by her billionaire husband. What followed shook the city. The phone call came at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday night in October. On one end of the line, a man's voice, calm and controlled. On the other, a 911 operator typing frantically. 911, what's your emergency? My wife, she fell down the stairs. She's pregnant. She's not responding. Sir, is she breathing? I think so, yes. But she won't wake up. How far along is she in her pregnancy? 7 months. Please, you have to hurry. The operator heard something in his voice. Not panic, not fear. Something rehearsed. Something too smooth for a man whose pregnant wife lay unconscious. Sir, what's your name? Dominic Ashcroft. We live at 875 North Michigan Avenue, penthouse suite. Please hurry. By the time the paramedics arrived 12 minutes later, Rosalie Winters was at the bottom of a marble staircase, her body curled protectively around her swollen belly, her hands still frozen in a defensive position, her face pale as death. And Dominic Ashcroft stood at the top of those stairs, perfectly calm, his shirt still pressed, not a hair out of place. One of the paramedics would later tell his supervisor something that wouldn't make it into the official report. He would say that in 20 years of emergency medicine, he had never seen a husband so composed while his pregnant wife fought for her life. He would say the bruises on her arms looked like fingerprints. He would say the story didn't match the injuries. But that night, no one asked questions. They just loaded Rosalie into the ambulance and raced toward Northwestern Memorial Hospital, while Dominic followed in his Mercedes, already making phone calls, already controlling the narrative, already burying the truth. Have you ever watched someone you love disappear into a relationship that slowly erases who they are? Have you ever felt trapped in a situation where speaking up felt more dangerous than staying silent? Have you seen the perfect life on social media and wondered what's really happening behind those closed doors? Tonight, I'm going to tell you a story that will shake you, not because it's unique, but because it happens every single day in mansions and trailer parks, in penthouse suites and basement apartments, to women whose names you'll never know and women whose faces smile at you from magazine covers. This is the story of Rosalie Winters, a woman who had everything the world told her to want, and nothing she actually needed. What happened to her didn't just shock the city of Chicago. It exposed a truth that powerful people spend millions of dollars to hide. It revealed that silence protects the guilty, not the innocent. And it proved that one voice, one moment of courage, one person refusing to disappear can bring down an empire built on control and fear. Before we go any further, I want you to bow your heads with me for just a moment. Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight with heavy hearts, asking for your presence in this story and in the lives of everyone listening. Lord, we pray for every person watching this who feels trapped, who feels voiceless, who feels like the walls are closing in and no one would believe them if they spoke. Give them courage, Father. Give them clarity. Surround them with people who will listen, who will believe, who will stand with them when standing feels impossible. We pray for healing for every wounded heart, for justice for every silenced voice, and for the strength to recognize that you did not create us to be controlled, diminished, or destroyed by another human being. Cover this story with your grace, Lord, and let it reach the person who needs it most. In your mighty name we pray. Amen. If this story already has your heart racing, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that like button. Not for me, for every person who's ever had to hide the truth just to survive another day. Subscribe to Keith Smith Golden Narrations because we tell stories that matter, stories that heal, stories that remind you that you're not alone in this world. And drop a comment right now, telling me this. Have you ever known someone whose perfect life wasn't what it seemed? Have you ever had to choose between your safety and your truth? Your voice in the comments might be exactly what someone else needs to hear tonight. Now let me take you back to where this story really begins. Not to the night of the fall, not to the hospital, or the sirens or the lies, but to a small town in Indiana 3 years earlier, where a young woman named Rosalie Winters was about to meet a man who would change her life in ways she never saw coming. Rosalie grew up in Bloomington, Indiana, in a house that was heavy on love and light on money. Her father had died when she was 12, leaving her mother to raise 3 kids on a nurse's salary that barely covered the mortgage. But they made it work. They always made it work. Rosalie was the middle child. Her older sister Lily was the fierce one, the protector, the one who got suspended in 10th grade for punching a boy who wouldn't leave Rosalie alone. Her younger cousin Liam, who'd lived with them since his parents passed, was the quiet one, the fixer, the one who could repair anything with duct tape and determination. And Rosalie. Rosalie was the dreamer. She had danced since she was 5 years old. Ballet, contemporary, jazz, anything that let her body say what her words sometimes couldn't. By the time she was 24, she was teaching dance at a small studio in Bloomington, saving every penny she could, dreaming of maybe, someday, opening her own place. She wasn't looking for rescue. She wasn't looking for a prince. She was looking for a life she could build with her own 2 hands. But then came the Chicago Contemporary Arts Gala. Her studio had been invited to perform. A 30-second showcase. Nothing major, but it was Chicago. It was exposure. It was a chance. Rosalie choreographed a piece about breaking free, about transformation, about a woman shedding the weight of other people's expectations and learning to stand in her own light. She wore a simple black dress. No sequins, no flash, just movement and music and meaning. And when the lights came up, Dominic Ashcroft was standing at the edge of the stage, watching her like she was the only person in the room. He was 36, tall, sharp-featured, impeccably dressed in a suit that probably cost more than Rosalie made in 3 months. He owned half the commercial real estate in downtown Chicago. His name was on buildings. His face was in Forbes. And for some reason Rosalie would spend years trying to understand. He wanted her. He approached her after the performance with a glass of champagne she hadn't asked for, and a smile that made her feel like she'd been noticed for the first time in her life. "That was extraordinary," he said. His voice was smooth, confident, the voice of a man who was used to getting what he wanted. "You made everyone in this room disappear." Rosalie laughed nervously. "I'm pretty sure that's not true. But thank you. I'm Dominic Ashcroft." He extended his hand. She shook it. His grip was firm, possessive, though she didn't recognize it then. "Rosalie Winters." "Can I buy you dinner, Rosalie Winters?" She should have said no. Later, looking back, she would see all the signs she missed that night. The way he stood too close. The way he steered her away from her friends without her noticing. The way he asked questions that sounded like interest but were really reconnaissance. But that night, all she felt was seen. They went to dinner at a restaurant where the menu didn't have prices and the waiters called him by name. He asked about her childhood, her dreams, her dance. He listened in a way that felt rare and precious. And when he drove her back to her hotel at 2 a.m. in a car that cost more than her mother's house, Rosalie thought maybe, just maybe, fairy tales happen to regular girls too. The courtship was a hurricane. Dominic sent flowers to her studio, not a dozen roses, 3 dozen, every other day. He called her every morning at 7 and every night at 10. He flew her to Chicago on weekends, taking her to restaurants she'd only seen in magazines, introducing her to people whose names she recognized from news headlines. He made her feel special, chosen, like she'd won some cosmic lottery. Her family was cautious. Lily asked the hard questions. "Don't you think this is moving kind of fast? You've known him for 6 weeks and he's already talking about you moving to Chicago." "He's just excited," Rosalie said, her voice defensive in a way that should have been a warning sign. "He knows what he wants. But do you know what you want?" Lily pressed. Rosalie did know, or at least she thought she did. She wanted to be loved. She wanted to matter. She wanted to believe that someone like Dominic Ashcroft could look at someone like her and see forever. 3 months after they met, he proposed. Not at a restaurant, not on a beach, in his penthouse, overlooking the Chicago skyline, with a ring that made her gasp and a speech about how she was the missing piece he'd been searching for his entire life. She said yes. Looking back, she couldn't even remember if she'd been happy or just overwhelmed. The wedding happened fast. Too fast. A small ceremony at a luxury hotel, attended mostly by Dominic's colleagues and clients. Rosalie's family came. Her mother cried. Lily hugged her tight and whispered, "If you ever need me, I'm 1 phone call away. Always." Rosalie had laughed. "I'm getting married, not moving to another planet." But in a way, she was. The first few months of marriage felt like playing house in someone else's dream. The penthouse was beautiful. Sterile, but beautiful. All white marble and floor-to-ceiling windows and furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum, not a home. Dominic was attentive. He came home with gifts. Jewelry she never wore, designer clothes that weren't her style, expensive things that felt more like props than presents. He also came home with rules. They started small. Suggestions, really. "You should wear your hair down. I prefer it that way. That dress is a little too casual for dinner tonight. Why don't you wear the one I bought you? I don't think you should teach at that studio anymore. You're my wife now. You don't need to work. Rosalie pushed back, gently at first. I like teaching. It makes me feel like me. Dominic smiled. That smile she was learning to fear. You don't need to be anyone but Mrs. Ashcroft. Isn't that enough? The question felt like a trap. She kept teaching. For a while. But every class became a negotiation. Every late night at the studio became an argument. Every moment she spent away from him became evidence that she didn't appreciate everything he'd given her. So slowly, so gradually she didn't even notice it happening. Rosalie stopped dancing. She stopped calling Lily as often. The conversations felt complicated. How do you explain to your sister that your perfect life feels like drowning? She stopped visiting Bloomington. Dominic always had something planned. A work event. A dinner. A reason she needed to stay. She stopped recognizing herself in the mirror. The woman staring back at her wore expensive clothes and perfect makeup and a smile that never reached her eyes. 6 months into the marriage, Dominic announced they were trying for a baby. Rosalie hadn't known they'd decided that. But when she got pregnant 3 months later, Dominic was overjoyed. He announced it to his board of directors before he told her family. He hired the most expensive obstetrician in Chicago. He planned the nursery down to the paint color, which Rosalie wasn't consulted about. And he became more controlling than ever. You need to be careful, he said, his hand on her still flat stomach. You're carrying my daughter, my legacy. Nothing can happen to her. Not our daughter. His daughter. Rosalie tried to feel grateful. She tried to feel excited, but mostly she felt trapped. Lily noticed the change during one of their increasingly rare phone calls. Rosa, you sound exhausted. Are you okay? I'm fine, just pregnancy stuff, you know. I don't know. That's why I'm asking. Rosalie forced brightness into her voice. Seriously, Lil, I'm good. Dominic is taking great care of me. There was a long pause. Then Lily said, You know you can tell me anything, right? Even if it's hard, especially if it's hard. I know, Rosalie whispered. I love you. I love you too. But Rosalie didn't tell her the truth, because the truth felt too big, too shameful, too impossible to explain. The truth was that Dominic had started tracking her phone. She'd found the app by accident one day when her battery was draining faster than usual. The truth was that he'd convinced her to put all her bank accounts in his name. For tax purposes, he'd said, to make things simpler. The truth was that he'd started telling her what to eat, when to sleep, who she could talk to. The truth was that the penthouse with the $1 million view had started to feel like a prison with very expensive bars. And the truth was that Rosalie Winters, the girl who'd choreographed a dance about breaking free, had become a woman who couldn't even leave her own home without permission. By the time she was 7 months pregnant, the mask Dominic wore in public had started slipping in private. He didn't hit her. Not yet. But he came close. He would back her into corners during arguments, his body a wall she couldn't escape. He would grab her arms hard enough to leave bruises she'd cover with long sleeves. He would say things designed to hollow her out from the inside. You're lucky I want you. No one else would deal with how needy you are. You're embarrassing me in front of important people. Do you have any idea how that reflects on me? If you can't handle being my wife, maybe you're not strong enough to be a mother. That last one landed like a knife between her ribs. Because Rosalie was terrified he might be right. She had become so small, so quiet, so dependent that she didn't recognize herself anymore. How could she protect a child when she couldn't even protect herself? The night of the Chicago Contemporary Arts Gala, the same event where they'd met 3 years earlier, Rosalie stood in front of the bathroom mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She was 7 months pregnant, exhausted, wearing a navy blue dress Dominic's publicist had chosen because, as Gabrielle Monroe had said, with professional coldness the public responds better to soft colors on pregnant women. You want to look maternal, not powerful. Rosalie touched her reflection. When had she stopped being powerful? Dominic appeared in the doorway behind her. We're going to be late. I'm ready. Are you? His eyes scanned her like she was a product he was quality checking. You look tired. I am tired. Well, don't show it tonight. This gala matters. I'm receiving an award. Investors will be there, press, people who are deciding whether to trust me with their money. He stepped closer. I need you to be perfect. Perfect. That word had started to feel like a threat. The gala was exactly what Rosalie had learned to expect. Dominic was charming, attentive, the model husband. His hand stayed on her lower back, a gesture that looked protective but felt controlling. He introduced her to person after person. "This is my wife, Rosalie. She's the reason I understand beauty." People smiled. Women told her how lucky she was. Men shook Dominic's hand and congratulated him on the award, the wife, the baby, the empire. No one asked Rosalie how she felt. No one noticed that her smiles never reached her eyes. No one saw the way she flinched slightly every time Dominic touched her. Except one person. Dr. Kira Okonkwo, a trauma surgeon at Northwestern Memorial, was at the gala with her wife. She'd been watching Rosalie all evening with the trained eye of someone who'd seen too many women wearing expensive dresses and invisible bruises. When Rosalie excused herself to the restroom, Dr. Okonkwo followed. Inside the marble and gold bathroom, Rosalie leaned against the sink, breathing slowly, trying to calm the anxiety crawling up her throat. "Are you all right?" "Doctor." Okonkwo's voice was gentle. Rosalie straightened immediately, forcing a smile. "Yes, fine. Just pregnancy stuff. The baby's kicking my ribs." Dr. Okonkwo nodded slowly. She handed Rosalie a business card. "I'm a doctor at Northwestern. If you ever need anything, medical or otherwise, please call." Rosalie stared at the card. Something in the woman's eyes told her this wasn't about prenatal care. "Thank you," she whispered, slipping the card into her clutch. When she returned to the ballroom, Dominic was waiting. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Who were you talking to?" "Just another guest. She was asking about the baby." "What did you tell her?" "That I'm due in 2 months." His hand found her elbow. His grip was tight. "Let's go. I'm done here." The car ride home was silent. The kind of silence that feels like the air before a storm. Rosalie watched Chicago slide past the tinted windows. Lights blurred together. People walked on sidewalks, free to go wherever they wanted, free to be whoever they were. She envied them. At the penthouse, Dominic poured himself a drink, 18-year-old scotch from a crystal decanter. He took a long sip, then turned to face her. "You barely spoke tonight. You told me to smile and look perfect. That's what I did. You looked uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable. I'm 7 months pregnant, Dominic. I'm tired. My feet hurt. I just want to go to bed." He set the glass down with a sharp click. "Your feet hurt. Your back hurts. You're tired. You're always something, Rosalie. Do you have any idea what I'm dealing with? The pressure I'm under, the people counting on me. I'm not trying to make your life harder. Then stop acting like being my wife is such a burden." She took a breath, tried to keep her voice steady. "I never said that." "You don't have to say it. It's written all over your face every time we go anywhere. That haunted look, like I'm some kind of monster." Rosalie's hands moved protectively to her belly. "I don't think you're a monster. Then what do you think?" He stepped closer. "Say it. For once in your life, just say what you're actually thinking." This was the moment. The fork in the road. She could swallow the words like she'd swallowed thousands of words over the past 3 years. Or she could tell the truth. Something in her broke. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the baby kicking inside her, reminding her that soon she'd be responsible for another life. Maybe it was the business card in her clutch from a doctor who'd seen what Rosalie was trying so hard to hide. "I think I'm scared of you," she said quietly. The room went still. Dominic's expression didn't change. That was what terrified her most. No surprise, no denial, just cold acknowledgement. "You're scared of me," he repeated slowly. "Yes, after everything I've given you, this home, this life, this child, you're scared of me. Dominic, please, I just want to go to bed. We can talk about this tomorrow." "No." His voice was sharp as broken glass. "We're talking about this now." He moved toward her. Not fast, not in a way that would look violent to a camera, just deliberate, backing her toward the stairs. "You think I'm the problem?" he said. "You think I'm the reason you're miserable? Have you ever considered that maybe you're just not strong enough for this life? Maybe you're not capable of being who I need you to be. I've tried." Her voice broke. "I've tried so hard. Not hard enough." Rosalie's back hit the wall near the top of the staircase. Dominic's hand came up, not quite touching her, but close enough that she felt the threat. "You're becoming a liability," he said quietly. "Do you understand what that means?" She understood. She understood that the man she'd married, the man she'd trusted, the man whose child she was carrying, had just stopped seeing her as a person. She was a problem, a risk, a thing to be managed. "Please," she whispered. "I'll do better. I promise. Just please, let's go to bed. You think you can just cry your way out of this?" His voice was ice. "You think tears fix the fact that you embarrassed me tonight? That you made me look weak in front of people whose respect I need? I didn't mean to. You never mean to. But you keep doing it anyway." His hand moved to her shoulder. Not gentle, not kind. A grip that made her wince. "Dominic, you're hurting me. I haven't even started hurting you." That was when Rosalie knew. She knew with absolute certainty that if she didn't get away from him right now, something terrible was going to happen. She tried to step around him, toward the bedroom, anywhere but this corner he'd backed her into, but he moved with her, blocking her path. "Where do you think you're going?" "I just need some space. Please. You don't get to walk away from me." His hand tightened on her shoulder. Rosalie tried to pull back. Her foot caught on the edge of the top stair. Time slowed. She felt herself tilting backward, felt gravity taking over, felt her hands move instinctively to protect her belly. She saw Dominic's face. For just a second, she saw something flicker there. Not regret, not horror, calculation. He could have caught her. His hand was right there. He could have grabbed her arm, pulled her forward, stopped the fall. He didn't. He stepped back, and Rosalie fell. She hit the third step hard, her shoulder taking the impact. Her body twisted, trying desperately to protect the baby. She tumbled down 4 more steps before her head cracked against the marble. Then everything went dark. She didn't hear Dominic walk calmly down the stairs. She didn't hear him pull out his phone. She didn't hear him dial 911 with the same composure he used to order coffee. But if she had been conscious, she would have heard him say, with perfect control, "My wife fell down the stairs. She's pregnant. Please hurry." She would have heard him rehearsing the story he'd already decided to tell. She would have heard him making another call, this one to Gabrielle Monroe. "We have a situation," he said quietly. "I need you at the hospital. And Gabrielle, this stays quiet. Handle it." 12 minutes later, the paramedics arrived. They found Rosalie exactly where Dominic said she would be. Unconscious, unresponsive, 7 months pregnant. Her body curled protectively around her daughter. One of the EMTs, a young man named Marcus, knelt beside her and checked for a pulse. "She's breathing. Pulse is weak. We need to move now." His partner, an older woman named Chen, looked up at Dominic, who stood at the top of the stairs, perfectly composed. "What happened?" Chen asked. "She fell," Dominic said. "She's been having dizzy spells. The pregnancy has been difficult. I told her to be careful on the stairs." Marcus examined Rosalie's injuries with careful hands. Bruising on her shoulder, on her upper arms, defensive positioning. Something didn't feel right. But they didn't have time to ask questions. They had to save her. They loaded Rosalie onto a stretcher, moving with practiced efficiency. Dominic followed them to the ambulance, his face the perfect mask of a worried husband. "Is she going to be okay?" he asked. "Is the baby okay?" "We're doing everything we can, sir," Chen said. "We need to get her to Northwestern now. I'll follow in my car." As the ambulance pulled away, sirens screaming into the October night, Dominic stood on the sidewalk and made another call. "It's done," he said. "She's on her way to Northwestern. Make sure the story is clean. Make sure no one asks the wrong questions." Then he got into his Mercedes and followed the ambulance, already constructing the narrative that would protect him. Already erasing the truth. Already counting on the fact that money, power, and control could bury anything, even attempted murder. At Northwestern Memorial Hospital, the emergency room erupted into controlled chaos the moment the ambulance doors opened. Dr. Kira Okonkwo was on shift. She heard the call come through. Pregnant woman, 29 years old, fall downstairs, unresponsive. When they wheeled Rosalie in, Dr. Okonkwo's blood ran cold. It was the woman from the gala, the one with the haunted eyes, and the controlling husband. The one she'd given her card to just 4 hours earlier. "Get me a full trauma panel," Dr. Okonkwo ordered. "I want imaging, blood work, fetal monitoring. Move." Nurses swarmed. Machines beeped. Rosalie lay still as death on the gurney, her hands still curved around her belly even in unconsciousness. Dominic arrived 10 minutes later. He walked into the ER like he owned it, which in a way he did. Ashcroft Properties had donated $2 million to Northwestern's new wing. "Where is she?" he demanded. "Where's my wife?" Dr. Okonkwo stepped forward. Mr. Ashcroft, I'm Dr. Okonkwo. I'm treating your wife. Recognition flickered in his eyes. I remember you. From the gala? Yes, your wife is in critical condition. We're doing everything we can. What about the baby? We're monitoring fetal heart rate. So far, it's stable. Can I see her? Not yet. We need to stabilize her first. Dominic's jaw tightened. I want to be clear, doctor. Money is no object. Whatever she needs, the best care, the best specialists, whatever it takes. Dr. Okonkwo met his eyes. We're already giving her the best care. Good. Keep me updated. And doctor, this is a private family matter. I trust discretion won't be an issue. There it was. The threat wrapped in courtesy. Dr. Okonkwo didn't flinch. My priority is my patient's well-being. Nothing else. She turned and walked back into the trauma bay, leaving Dominic in the waiting room with his phone and his lies. Inside, Dr. Okonkwo examined Rosalie with meticulous care. The injuries told a story. Multiple contusions, bruising on the upper arms that looked like fingerprints, defensive positioning, a head injury consistent with impact, yes, but the other injuries were inconsistent with a simple fall. This wasn't an accident. Dr. Okonkwo had seen this before, too many times. Women who fell, women who walked into doors, women whose husbands spoke for them, controlled their care, made sure the truth stayed buried under medical jargon and insurance paperwork. But this time, she'd met the woman before the fall. This time, she had context. She stepped out of the trauma bay and found the charge nurse, a woman named Patricia who'd been working at Northwestern for 30 years and had seen everything. Patricia, I need you to do something for me, Dr. Okonkwo said quietly. Document everything about this case, every injury, every inconsistency, everything. Patricia's eyes narrowed. You think the husband did this? I think someone needs to ask questions before the answers disappear. Patricia nodded slowly. I'll make sure the documentation is thorough. By 3 a.m., Rosalie was stable but still unconscious. The baby's heartbeat remained strong, a small miracle wrapped in tragedy. Dr. Okonkwo stepped into the waiting room to update Dominic. He stood immediately. How is she? Stable. But she's in a coma. We won't know the extent of neurological damage until she wakes up. If she wakes up, what do you mean if? Head injuries are unpredictable, Mr. Ashcroft. We're doing everything we can. Can I see her now? Dr. Okonkwo hesitated. Every instinct told her to say no. But legally, he was her husband. 5 minutes. She needs rest. Dominic walked into the ICU room like a man visiting his wife. He stood at the foot of her bed, looking at her unconscious form with an expression that might have been concern if you didn't look too closely. But Dr. Okonkwo was looking closely, and what she saw in his eyes wasn't fear or grief. It was assessment, calculation, the look of a man deciding whether his problem had been solved or if he needed to take further action. He stayed exactly 5 minutes. Then he left without touching her, without speaking to her, without showing any of the desperate emotion you'd expect from a man whose wife and unborn child were fighting for their lives. Outside, he made another call. Gabrielle, it's me. She's alive, still unconscious. We need to control this before it gets out of hand. Gabrielle Monroe arrived at the hospital at 4 a.m. with her tablet and her strategies and her complete willingness to bury the truth for the right price. She found Dominic in a private waiting room. Tell me everything, she said. So he did. The carefully edited version. The version where Rosalie was unstable, emotional, where the pregnancy had made her irrational, where she'd been having dizzy spells and he'd warned her about the stairs. The version where he was the concerned husband and she was the fragile wife. The version where he was innocent. Gabrielle typed notes on her tablet. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We release a statement. Brief, sympathetic. We frame this as a tragic accident. We emphasize her medical history. She doesn't have a medical history. She does now. Anxiety, pregnancy complications. We get her obstetrician to confirm she was high risk. We create a narrative of a woman under stress who had an accident. And if she wakes up, then we deal with that when it happens. For now, we control the story. By 6 a.m., the statement was released. Rosalie Ashcroft, wife of prominent developer Dominic Ashcroft, was hospitalized early this morning following a fall at her home. Mrs. Ashcroft, who is 7 months pregnant, is receiving excellent care at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. The family requests privacy during this difficult time. The statement went to every major news outlet in Chicago. It was picked up immediately, not as a scandal, as a human interest story. Wealthy wife, tragic accident, prayers for recovery. No one asked about the bruises. No one questioned the timeline. No one wondered why the security footage from the penthouse building had mysteriously disappeared. By morning, the narrative was set. And 200 miles away in Bloomington, Indiana, Lily Winters woke up to 17 missed calls and a text message that would change everything. The text was from her mother. Just 2 words. "Call me." Lily's hands shook as she dialed. Her mother answered on the first ring. "Lily, it's Rosa. What about her?" "Mom, what happened?" "She's in the hospital. She fell. She's pregnant, Lil. I didn't even know she was pregnant. And she fell down the stairs and now she's in a coma and they don't know if she's going to wake up." The world tilted. "What do you mean a coma? What do you mean she fell?" "That's what Dominic said. He called an hour ago. Said she'd been having dizzy spells. Said it was an accident." Lily's chest tightened. "Where is she?" "Northwestern Memorial in Chicago. I'm coming." "Lily, wait. Dominic said family visits need to be approved. He said she needs rest and too many people will stress her out." "I don't care what Dominic said. That's my sister." She hung up and started throwing clothes into a bag. Liam appeared in her doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "What's going on?" "It's Rosa. She's in the hospital. Something happened." Liam was alert immediately. What kind of something? The kind that Dominic is calling an accident. Understanding passed between them. They'd never liked Dominic. Never trusted the too-quick marriage, the isolation, the way Rosalie had slowly stopped sounding like herself on phone calls. "I'm coming with you," Liam said. "You don't have to. She's family. We're going." By 9 a.m., they were on the road. 3.5 hours of highway stretched between Bloomington and Chicago. 3.5 hours of Lily's mind, racing through every conversation with Rosalie over the past 3 years, looking for signs she'd missed, warnings she'd ignored. "Do you think this is moving too fast?" "I'm fine, Lil. Stop worrying. He's just protective. I can't make it for Thanksgiving. Dominic has this work thing. I'm tired. I'll call you tomorrow." "Don't you sound different lately?" "No. I'm the same, just busy." Every reassurance had been a lie. Every "I'm fine" had been a plea for help wrapped in words Rosalie thought Lily wanted to hear. And Lily had let her believe she was fooled. "I should have gone to Chicago," Lily said, her hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. "I should have shown up unannounced and dragged her out of there." "You didn't know," Liam said quietly. "I knew something was wrong. I felt it. And I let her convince me everything was fine because it was easier than fighting her on it. We're fighting now." They arrived at Northwestern Memorial at 12:30 p.m. The hospital was massive, gleaming, the kind of place where money could buy anything except honesty. Lily walked up to the reception desk with Liam right behind her. "I'm here to see Rosalie Ashcroft." The receptionist typed into her computer. Her expression shifted slightly. "I'm sorry. Mrs. Ashcroft is in the ICU and visits are restricted to approved family only." "I am family. I'm her sister. Let me check the approved list." More typing. Then a careful, apologetic expression. "I'm sorry. You're not on the approved visitor list." "What do you mean I'm not approved? She's my sister. Mr. Ashcroft has requested that visits be limited due to Mrs. Ashcroft's condition." Lily's voice rose. "Mr. Ashcroft doesn't get to decide whether I see my sister." A security guard started moving toward them. Liam put a gentle hand on Lily's arm. "Let's not get kicked out before we even get in." Lily took a breath, forced herself to speak calmly. "Can you at least tell me how she is?" "I can't discuss patient information. You'd need to speak with Mr. Ashcroft." "I don't want to speak with Mr. Ashcroft. I want to see my sister." The receptionist looked genuinely sympathetic. "I understand, but my hands are tied. Hospital policy." Lily felt tears of frustration burning behind her eyes. She turned away before they could fall. Liam followed her to a quiet corner of the lobby. "This is wrong," Lily said. "He's blocking us from seeing her. Why would he do that unless he has something to hide?" "We need to be smart about this," Liam said. "If we cause a scene, they'll ban us from the building. We need another way in." That was when a voice spoke from behind them. "Excuse me." They turned. A woman in scrubs stood there, her badge identifying her as Patricia, RN. "I couldn't help but overhear," Patricia said quietly. "You're Rosalie's sister?" "Yes, Lily." "This is our cousin Liam." Patricia glanced around, then lowered her voice. I can give you 5 minutes, maybe 10 if we're lucky, but you didn't hear that from me. Hope flared in Lily's chest. Thank you. Thank you so much. Follow me. Stay close. If anyone asks, your pharmacy delivery. They followed Patricia through a maze of corridors, past nurses' stations and supply closets, into an elevator that took them to the ICU floor. Room 847, Patricia said. You have 10 minutes. After that, I have to ask you to leave or we'll all be in trouble. She walked away, leaving them standing outside a door with Rosalie's name on it. Lily's hand trembled as she pushed it open. The room was dim. Machines beeped steadily. And there, in the bed, was Rosalie. She looked so small, so fragile. Her face was pale, bruises blooming across her cheekbone. Her belly rose beneath the blanket, a reminder of the innocent life caught in this nightmare. Tubes and wires connected her to machines that were breathing for her, monitoring her, keeping her alive. Lily walked to the bedside and took her sister's hand. Hey, Rosa, she whispered. It's me. I'm here. No response. Just the steady beep of monitors. Liam stood near the foot of the bed, his eyes tracking over Rosalie's injuries with the careful attention of someone who'd spent years fixing broken things. Lily, he said quietly. What? Look at her arms. Lily looked. Bruises, dark purple marks shaped like fingerprints. Those aren't from a fall, Liam said. Those are from someone grabbing her. Lily's breath caught. She looked at Rosalie's shoulder. More bruising. The pattern too deliberate, too specific. He did this, Lily said. Dominic did this. Before Liam could respond, the door opened. Dr. Kira Okonkwo stepped inside. She looked at Lily and Liam, then at the door, then back at them. You're not supposed to be here, she said carefully. Please don't make us leave, Lily said. She's my sister. I need to see her. Dr. Okonkwo studied them for a long moment. Then she closed the door behind her. I'm going to say something, she said quietly. And then I'm going to leave. And you didn't hear it from me. Lily nodded. The injuries on your sister are inconsistent with a fall down the stairs. I've documented everything. But documentation only matters if someone asks the right questions. What are you saying? I'm saying someone should be asking questions about how she really got hurt. And someone should make sure those questions get asked before the evidence disappears. Evidence? Liam asked. Medical records, photos, witness statements. Right now, this is being treated as an accident. But if someone, a family member, for instance, requested an investigation, the police would have to look into it. Lily's heart pounded. You think he did this on purpose? I think your sister needs someone fighting for her, because the man in the waiting room isn't fighting for her. He's fighting to protect himself. Dr. Okonkwo walked to the door, then paused. I met your sister at a gala earlier that night. She looked terrified. I gave her my card, told her to call if she needed help. Her voice broke slightly. She never got the chance. She left, leaving Lily and Liam alone with the weight of that truth. Lily leaned down and whispered against Rosalie's hand. I'm not leaving you. Do you hear me, Rosa? I'm not letting him get away with this. And somewhere in the darkness where Rosalie's mind had retreated to escape the pain, maybe she heard. Maybe some part of her knew she wasn't alone anymore. That the silence had been broken, and the fight for truth had finally begun. Outside room 847, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Lily and Liam heard them getting closer. Heavy footsteps, confident, the kind that belonged to someone who expected doors to open before he reached them. Liam moved to the window, positioning himself where he could see without being obvious. His body went tense. It's him, he whispered. Dominic, and he's got someone with him, a woman with a tablet. Lily squeezed Rosalie's hand one more time. We'll be back, she promised. I don't care what he says. We'll be back. They slipped out of the room just as Dominic turned the corner at the far end of the hall. Lily kept her head down, walking quickly, but not running. Running would draw attention. Running would give him ammunition. They made it to the stairwell before he saw them. Inside the concrete echo chamber of the stairs, Lily finally let herself breathe. Did you see his face? She asked. When we were at reception, he wasn't worried about her. He was annoyed that we showed up. I saw it, Liam said. And I saw something else too. What? The way that nurse helped us. Dr. Okonkwo. They're not all buying his story. Lily leaned against the cold wall. What do we do? We can't just leave her there with him controlling everything. We don't leave. We get help. Real help. Liam pulled out his phone. I know a guy from the veterans group I volunteer with. He's a lawyer now, works with domestic violence cases. If anyone knows how to navigate this, it's him. He made the call right there in the stairwell. The conversation was brief, urgent, honest. When he hung up, there was something like hope in his eyes. His name is Marcus Webb. He's meeting us at a coffee shop 2 blocks from here in an hour. He says if what we're describing is true, we have grounds to request a police investigation and possibly emergency protective orders, even though she's married to him, especially because she's married to him. They left the hospital and walked to a small coffee shop that smelled like espresso and seemed blessedly normal after the antiseptic tension of Northwestern Memorial. Marcus Webb arrived exactly on time. He was in his mid-40s, with graying hair and the kind of eyes that had seen too much suffering and refused to look away. He shook their hands and sat down across from them. Tell me everything. So they did. 3 years of watching Rosalie disappear. Phone calls that got shorter and more guarded. Missed holidays. The change in her voice, her energy, herself. The isolation, the control. And now this. The fall that wasn't a fall. The bruises that looked like fingerprints. The husband blocking family from visiting. Marcus took notes on a legal pad. His expression never changed, but his pen pressed harder with each detail. When they finished, he sat back and exhaled slowly. Okay. Here's what we're dealing with. Right now, officially, this is an accidental injury. The police haven't been called because there's no complainant. Your sister is unconscious, so she can't report what happened, and her husband is controlling the narrative. So he just gets away with it? Lily's voice cracked. I didn't say that. I said that's what we're dealing with right now, but there are steps we can take. He flipped to a fresh page. First, I'm going to contact the hospital's patient advocacy office and file a complaint about restricted visitation. They can't legally keep immediate family away without medical justification, and being inconvenient to the husband isn't medical justification. Will that work? It'll create documentation, it'll start a paper trail, and it'll force them to justify their decisions. What else? Liam asked. Second, I'm going to reach out to someone I know in the Chicago PD, a detective in the domestic violence unit. She's good, she's thorough, and she doesn't care how rich or powerful the abuser is. If we can get her to look at this case, even informally, we have a shot at this being investigated properly. What do you need from us? Lily asked. Everything you remember. Every conversation with Rosalie where she seemed off. Every time he isolated her, or controlled her, or made decisions for her. I need you to write it all down. Dates if you can remember them. Details. Everything. We can do that. Marcus closed his notebook. There's something else you should know. Men like Dominic Ashcroft don't operate alone. They have systems, lawyers, PR people, fixers who make problems disappear. He's going to have thought through every angle of this. We need to be smarter. How do we do that? We find the cracks in his story. We find the people who saw what really happened. We find evidence he doesn't know exists. Marcus leaned forward. And we move fast. Because every hour that passes, evidence disappears. Witnesses forget details. Stories get locked into place. What about the security footage? Liam asked. Buildings like that have cameras everywhere. Marcus's eyes sharpened. That's exactly the kind of thing we need to find out about. Who controls building security? Who has access to the footage? And if it's mysteriously missing, why? They talked for another 30 minutes, building a strategy, identifying next steps, transforming grief and anger into action. When they finally stood to leave, Marcus put a hand on Lily's shoulder. Your sister is lucky to have you fighting for her. She shouldn't need me to fight, Lily said. She should be safe in her own home. You're right, she should be. But she wasn't. So now we make sure the person who hurt her answers for it. Back in Bloomington, Lily's mother was making phone calls of her own. Margaret Winters had raised 3 kids on a nurse's salary after her husband died. She knew how to stretch a dollar and how to read people. And everything about Dominic Ashcroft's phone call had felt wrong. Too polished. Too rehearsed. Too focused on controlling the information and not enough on the woman fighting for her life. She called the hospital directly, asking to speak with Rosalie's doctor. She was transferred 3 times before someone finally told her that patient information could only be discussed with approved family members, and she wasn't on the list. I'm her mother, Margaret said, her voice sharp with disbelief. I understand, ma'am, but per Mr. Ashcroft's instructions, only he is authorized to receive updates. Mr. Ashcroft isn't her only family. I'm sorry. You'll need to take that up with him. Margaret hung up and immediately called Lily. They won't tell me anything, she said. He's blocked all of us out. We know, Mom. We're working on it. What does that mean? It means we have a lawyer. It means we're not letting him bury this. There was a long pause. Then Margaret said, in a voice Lily had only heard a few times in her life, the voice that meant her mother was done being polite and ready to burn down whatever stood in her way. Good, because if that man hurt my daughter, lawyer or no lawyer, rich or not rich, he's going to answer to me. While Lily and Liam were building their case, something else was happening in a completely different part of Chicago. Maya Park sat in the security office of the Ashcroft Properties building on North Michigan Avenue, staring at a computer screen that showed absolutely nothing where something should have been. She had worked building security for 3 years. She knew every camera angle, every blind spot, every quirk of the system, and she knew that what she was looking at was not a glitch. It was a deletion. The timestamp showed 11:34 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. on the night Rosalie Ashcroft had allegedly fallen down the stairs. 25 minutes of footage from the penthouse hallway camera. Just gone. Replaced with black screen. But Maya had a secret. The building's security system had a redundancy protocol. Every 72 hours, all footage was backed up to an off-site server. It was supposed to be automatic, invisible, just another layer of corporate insurance against liability. Most people didn't know it existed. Maya did. She pulled up the backup server access and logged in with credentials she wasn't technically supposed to have, but had acquired during a system upgrade 6 months ago, when the IT contractor had been careless with passwords. The footage was there. All of it. She watched it once. Then again. Then a third time, her stomach twisting tighter with each viewing. This wasn't an accident. This was assault. This was a man backing his pregnant wife toward a staircase, grabbing her, threatening her, and then stepping back to let her fall when she tried to get away from him. This was evidence. Maya's hands shook as she copied the file to a flash drive. Her girlfriend had asked her once why she cared so much about her job, why she took it so seriously when she was just watching screens in a basement office for barely above minimum wage. Maya had never told her the real reason. When Maya was 19, her older sister had married a man everyone thought was perfect, successful, charming, generous. 2 years later, her sister was dead. Officially, it was a fall. She'd slipped in the shower, hit her head, drowned in 2 inches of water. The husband had cried at the funeral. He'd given a beautiful eulogy, and he'd walked away without ever being questioned, because there was no evidence, because no one had thought to look, because powerful men who hurt women had learned exactly how to make it look like an accident. Maya had promised herself that if she ever had the chance to stop it from happening to someone else, she would. This was that chance. She ejected the flash drive and slipped it into her pocket. Then she did something that would either save a life or destroy her own. She sent an email. The recipient was Sienna Reeves, an investigative journalist at the Chicago Sun-Times who had made a career out of exposing powerful men who thought they were untouchable. The email was brief. Subject line: Evidence re Rosalie Ashcroft incident. Body: I have security footage from the night in question. The official story is a lie. We need to talk. Use this encrypted number. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Then she logged out, cleared her browser history, and went home to wait. Sienna Reeves received the email at 9:47 p.m. while she was working late in the Sun-Times newsroom. She'd been following the Rosalie Ashcroft story with interest. Not because it was major news. It wasn't. Wealthy wife has accident. Thoughts and prayers. Move on. But something about it had pinged her instincts. She'd covered Dominic Ashcroft before. A puff piece 3 years ago about his charitable foundation. He'd been smooth, media-trained, careful. She'd noticed the way he talked about his fiancée at the time. Like she was an acquisition. A trophy. A thing that reflected well on him. Now that fiancée was in a coma, and the story was just a little too clean. Sienna opened the encrypted messaging app and sent a message to the number in the email. This is Sienna Reeves. I'm interested. When can we meet? The response came 30 seconds later. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. Millennium Park. Southeast corner. Come alone. Sienna smiled. She loved a source with a sense of drama. The next morning was cold and gray. The kind of October day that reminded you winter was coming whether you were ready or not. Sienna arrived at Millennium Park early. positioned herself where she could watch people approach, and waited. Maya Park appeared at exactly 10 a.m. She was younger than Sienna expected. Mid-20s, small, wearing a hoodie and jeans, looking over her shoulder every few seconds like she expected to be followed. Sienna stood and gave a small wave. Maya walked over, hands shoved deep in her pockets. "You're the journalist?" "I am." "And you're the person with evidence?" Maya nodded. "Can we walk?" "I don't want to stand still." They walked along the park paths, past tourists taking selfies with the bean, past joggers and dog walkers and people whose biggest problem was deciding where to get coffee. "Tell me what you have," Sienna said. Maya pulled out the flash drive. Footage from the night Rosalie Ashcroft fell from the penthouse building. It was deleted from the main system, but I pulled it from the backup before they could erase that too. Ashcroft Properties IT. They got a work order the morning after the incident. Delete footage, site system malfunction. I saw the request. It was flagged as priority. Sienna's pulse quickened. "And you kept a copy?" "I kept a copy." "Why?" Maya stopped walking. She looked at Sienna with eyes that had seen loss. "Because my sister died in a fall that wasn't a fall, and no one did anything because there was no proof. I'm not letting that happen again." Sienna understood. "Can I see it?" Maya handed her the drive. "It's rough to watch. I've watched rough things before. Not like this." They found a bench away from foot traffic. Sienna pulled out her laptop, inserted the drive, and pressed play. The footage was grainy black and white, but clear enough. 11:34 p.m. Dominic and Rosalie entering the frame. His hand on her elbow. Her body language tense, resistant. 11:38 p.m. They're near the penthouse door. Dominic is talking. His body language aggressive. Rosalie is backing away. 11:42 p.m. They're near the top of the interior staircase visible through the open penthouse door. Dominic has both hands on her shoulders. She's shaking her head, trying to move past him. 11:43 p.m. She pulls away. He grabs her arm. She twists, trying to break free. Her foot catches on the top step. She starts to fall. Dominic's hand is right there. He could catch her. He doesn't. He steps back, and she falls. 11:44 p.m. Dominic stands at the top of the stairs for 7 seconds, not moving, not calling for help, just watching. 11:45 p.m. He walks down calmly, checks her pulse, pulls out his phone. 11:47 p.m. He makes a call. His face is calm, controlled. 11:52 p.m. He makes another call, talking, gesturing, not panicked, strategic. 11:59 p.m. Paramedics arrive. The footage ended. Sienna sat very still, her journalist's objectivity momentarily shattered by pure rage. "He let her fall," she said quietly. "He made her fall," Maya corrected. "And then he erased the evidence." Sienna ejected the drive and handed it back. "I need to verify this, make sure it's authentic, unaltered. I need metadata, timestamps, chain of custody documentation. I can get you all of that, and then I need you to go on record." Maya's face went pale. "I'll lose my job. Probably. I might get sued. Possibly. He'll come after me. Almost certainly." Sienna met her eyes. "But that woman in the hospital bed didn't have a choice about whether to stand up to him. You do. And if you don't, he walks away, and the next woman he hurts won't have any evidence at all." Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "My sister's name was Lauren. She was 24 when she died. Her husband said she slipped in the shower. I never believed him, but I couldn't prove it. You can prove this one." "Yeah." Maya's voice was steady now. "Yeah, let's burn his world down." Over the next 48 hours, Sienna worked faster than she'd ever worked in her 15-year career. She had the footage authenticated by a digital forensics expert who confirmed it was unaltered. She obtained the metadata showing the original timestamp and the deletion request from Ashcroft Properties IT. She interviewed Maya on the record, with her full name and employment history. And she reached out to the hospital. Dr. Kira Okonkwo agreed to speak on background. She couldn't share specific medical details because of HIPAA, but she could confirm that the injuries presented were, in her professional opinion, inconsistent with a simple accidental fall. Patricia, the ICU nurse, provided documentation showing that Dominic had specifically requested restricted visitation and had a list of approved visitors that included only himself and his attorney. Sienna also reached out to Lily and Liam through Marcus Webb. They provided a detailed account of Rosalie's 3-year marriage. The isolation, the control, the change in personality, the missed family events, the growing fear they'd heard in her voice. And she found 3 other women. Women who had worked at Ashcroft Properties over the past decade. Women who had left suddenly under mysterious circumstances. Women who had signed non-disclosure agreements in exchange for severance packages. 2 of them wouldn't talk. The threat of legal retaliation was too much. But one, a former assistant named Keisha Marshall, was done being silent. He threw a stapler at me, she told Sienna over the phone, because I scheduled a meeting 15 minutes later than he wanted. It hit the wall next to my head. And when I tried to report it to HR, they offered me 6 months' salary to resign and sign an NDA. Will you go on record? Will it help her, the wife? It might save her life. Then yes, put my name in print. I don't care anymore. Sienna wrote for 36 hours straight. She fact-checked every detail. She ran everything past the Sun-Times legal team, who were nervous but couldn't find a reason not to publish. And on Thursday morning, exactly 1 week after Rosalie's fall, the story went live. The headline was simple and devastating. Real estate mogul under investigation. Footage contradicts false story in wife's hospitalization. The article laid it all out. The footage, the deletion, the medical inconsistencies, the pattern of controlling behavior, the restricted hospital access, the NDAs and the former employees, and the carefully constructed image that was finally cracking under the weight of truth. Within an hour, every major news outlet in Chicago had picked it up. Within 2 hours, it was national news. By noon, Dominic Ashcroft's world was on fire. His phone rang constantly. Board members, investors, his attorney, his publicist. Everyone wanted answers, explanations, damage control. He stood in his penthouse, the same penthouse where Rosalie had fallen, and watched the city that had once celebrated him turn against him in real time. Gabrielle Monroe arrived at 1 p.m., her usually perfect composure showing cracks. "We need to respond," she said. "Now." "With what? The footage is real. We say it's taken out of context. We say she was unstable. We say the pregnancy made her irrational, and you were trying to protect her from herself." "Gabrielle, they have footage of me letting her fall. They have footage of an accident, a tragic accident during an argument. You were in shock. You froze. It's human." Dominic looked at her, really looked at her. "Do you believe that?" She hesitated. Just for a second. But that second told him everything. "It doesn't matter what I believe," she said. "It matters what we can make other people believe. Get out." "Excuse me?" "Get out of my home. You're fired." Gabrielle's face went cold. "You're making a mistake. The mistake was trusting you to fix something that can't be fixed." She left without another word, and Dominic was alone with his reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows and the sinking realization that money couldn't buy his way out of this. At Northwestern Memorial, the atmosphere had changed overnight. Hospital administration was suddenly very interested in Rosalie's case. Patient advocacy was reviewing the restricted visitation. Security was asking questions about who had authorized what. And at 2 p.m., 2 detectives from the Chicago Police Department's Domestic Violence Unit walked through the front doors. Detective Sarah Chen and her partner Detective Marcus Rivera had been assigned to the case that morning after Sienna's article hit. They'd read it 3 times. They'd watched the footage, and they'd decided this wasn't going away quietly. They met first with Dr. Okonkwo. "Tell us about her injuries," Detective Chen said. Dr. Okonkwo walked them through it. The head trauma, the shoulder impact, the bruising on her upper arms and wrists, the defensive positioning of her body. "In your professional opinion, are these injuries consistent with an accidental fall?" Rivera asked. "In my professional opinion, these injuries are consistent with assault followed by a fall." "Can you testify to that?" "If subpoenaed, yes." The detectives interviewed Patricia. They interviewed the EMTs who had responded to the 911 call. They requested Rosalie's complete medical records and the incident report from the night she was admitted. And then they went to speak with Dominic. He was in a private waiting room, his attorney beside him. A man named Gerald Hutchins, who specialized in making criminal charges disappear for wealthy clients. "Mr. Ashcroft," Detective Chen said, We'd like to ask you some questions about the night your wife was injured. My client has already provided a statement, Hutchins said. We'd like to hear it again, especially in light of new evidence. What new evidence? Security footage from your building. Dominic's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. That footage was deleted due to a system malfunction, Hutchins said smoothly. Interesting, Rivera replied. Because we have a copy, and it shows something very different from what you described. Hutchins leaned forward. My client will not be answering questions without proper legal preparation. If you wish to continue this conversation, we'll need to schedule a formal interview. That's fine, Chen said. We'll be in touch. And, Mr. Ashcroft, don't leave town. They walked out, leaving Dominic and his lawyer in tense silence. How bad is this? Dominic asked. Hutchins didn't sugarcoat it. If they file charges, you're looking at felony domestic battery at minimum. Possibly attempted murder, depending on how aggressive the prosecutor wants to be. And with video evidence and medical testimony, this isn't something we can make go away quietly. So, what do? You prepare for the fight of your life. While Chicago processed the bombshell of Sienna's article, something even more important was happening in room 847 of the ICU. Rosalie's fingers moved. It was small, barely noticeable, just a slight twitch against the white sheet. But Lily saw it. She'd been sitting vigil for hours, reading aloud from a book of poetry their mother used to love, filling the silence with words and presence and stubborn hope. And Rosalie's fingers moved. Rosa. Lily leaned forward, her heart hammering. Can you hear me? Another twitch. Stronger this time. Lily pressed the call button. I need a nurse, now. Patricia appeared within seconds, followed by Dr. Okonkwo. They checked monitors, examined responses, shone lights in Rosalie's eyes. She's showing signs of consciousness, Dr. Okonkwo said, trying to keep the excitement out of her professional tone and failing. This is good. This is very good. Over the next hour, Rosalie surfaced slowly. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, confused. The breathing tube had been removed the day before, and now small sounds escaped her throat. Lily held her hand, tears streaming down her face. I'm here, Rosa. You're okay. You're safe. Rosalie's eyes found her sister's face. Recognition dawned slowly, then all at once. She tried to speak. The word came out as barely a whisper. Lily. Yes. Yes. I'm right here. Rosalie's hand moved to her belly, panic flashing across her face. The baby's okay, Dr. Okonkwo said quickly. Your daughter is fine. Strong heartbeat. Everything looks good. Relief flooded Rosalie's expression. Then confusion. Then, as memory returned, fear. Dominic. He can't hurt you here, Lily said. We're making sure of that. Rosalie's eyes filled with tears. I know, we know, and you're not alone anymore. Dr. Okonkwo stepped closer. Rosalie, I know you're disoriented and exhausted, but I need to ask you something important. Do you remember what happened the night you were injured? Rosalie closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were clear, certain, devastated. He pushed me. The words fell into the room like stones. He didn't push me down the stairs, Rosalie continued, her voice getting stronger. But he grabbed me. He wouldn't let me leave. I tried to get past him and he grabbed my arms and I pulled away and I fell. And he just watched me fall. Dr. Okonkwo looked at Patricia. Document everything she just said, word for word. Timestamp it. Patricia was already writing. Rosalie, Dr. Okonkwo said gently, there are detectives who want to talk to you about that night. Are you willing to speak with them? Rosalie looked at Lily. Her sister nodded encouragement. Yes, Rosalie said. Yes. I'll tell them everything. 2 hours later, Detectives Chen and Rivera returned to the hospital. They sat beside Rosalie's bed with a recorder and a witness and infinite patience. And Rosalie told them everything, not just about that night, about the 3 years leading up to it. The isolation, the control, the way Dominic had systematically stripped away her autonomy, her connections, her sense of self. The tracking apps, the financial dependence, the verbal abuse that had escalated to physical intimidation. She told them about the gala, about seeing Gabrielle's name on Dominic's phone, about the argument when they got home. She told them about his hands on her shoulders, his voice cold and threatening, his words, "You're becoming a liability. She told them about trying to get away, about his grip tightening, about the moment she realized he wasn't going to let her go. And she told them about falling, about the terror of knowing she couldn't protect her baby, about the last thing she saw before everything went dark. His face, watching, deciding, letting her fall. The detectives recorded every word. When Rosalie finished, she was exhausted, shaking, but there was something new in her eyes. Relief. The truth was out. Finally. Completely. Undeniably. Detective Chen closed her notebook. "Thank you, Mrs. Ashcroft. I know how hard that was." "What happens now?" Rosalie asked. "Now we take this to the district attorney, and we let them decide what charges to file. Will it be enough to stop him?" Chen looked at Rivera, then back at Rosalie. "We have your statement, we have medical evidence, we have video footage, we have a pattern of behavior. Yes, it's enough." That evening, the district attorney's office announced they were opening a criminal investigation into the incident involving Rosalie Ashcroft. And the next morning, they did something Dominic had never truly believed would happen. They filed charges. Felony domestic battery, evidence tampering, witness intimidation based on his control of hospital access. A warrant was issued for his arrest. At 6 a.m. on a gray Tuesday morning, police arrived at the penthouse on North Michigan Avenue. Dominic answered the door in a silk robe and slippers, his hair perfect even at dawn, his expression one of disbelief that this was actually happening. "Dominic Ashcroft, you're under arrest," Detective Chen said, and there was satisfaction in her voice that she didn't bother hiding. They read him his rights. They handcuffed him. They walked him out of the building he owned, past doormen who wouldn't meet his eyes, into a police car that didn't care about his net worth. The cameras were waiting. Someone had tipped off the press. Maybe Maya. Maybe Sienna. Maybe just karma finally doing its job. The photo that would run on every front page showed Dominic Ashcroft, real estate mogul and philanthropist, in handcuffs, his face a mask of fury and disbelief. The man who had controlled everything suddenly controlled nothing. In her hospital room, Rosalie watched the news coverage with Lily beside her. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She just breathed. Deep and full and free. "It's really over," she whispered. Lily squeezed her hand. "No, now it really begins. If you're still watching this, if Rosalie's story has grabbed hold of your heart and won't let go, I need you to do something right now. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's in a relationship that doesn't feel right. Someone who's watching a friend disappear into someone else's control. Someone who thinks they're alone. Your share could save a life. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had to find courage you didn't know you had? Have you ever spoken a truth that terrified you? Your words matter. Your voice matters. And this story isn't finished yet. Subscribe to Keith Smith Golden Narrations because we tell stories that change lives. And what happens next in Rosalie's journey will remind you why speaking up is always worth it. The arraignment happened 3 days later. Dominic stood before a judge in an orange jumpsuit, his expensive suits and perfect image stripped away, reduced to inmate number and charges read aloud in a courtroom packed with press and observers. His attorney argued for bail. Dominic was a pillar of the community, he said. A successful businessman. He had deep ties to Chicago. He wasn't a flight risk. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Victoria Okafor, disagreed. "Your Honor, the defendant has unlimited financial resources, access to private aircraft, and strong motivation to flee given the evidence against him. He has also demonstrated a pattern of intimidation and control. His wife is still hospitalized, still vulnerable, and we believe she would be at risk if the defendant were released." The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who had seen every manipulation tactic in the book, looked at Dominic over her reading glasses. "Bail is denied," she said. "The defendant will remain in custody pending trial. Next case." Dominic's face went white. This wasn't supposed to happen. People like him didn't go to jail. People like him made calls and wrote checks and the problems disappeared. But the footage didn't disappear. Rosalie's testimony didn't disappear. The truth didn't disappear. He was let out in handcuffs while cameras flashed, and reporters shouted questions he didn't answer. Back at the hospital, Rosalie was finally being released. Not to the penthouse. Never back there. Marcus Webb had helped Lily find a small apartment in Evanston. 2 bedrooms. Ground floor. Close to the hospital for prenatal appointments. Affordable on the emergency fund their mother and extended family had pooled together. It wasn't much, but it was Rosalie's. As they helped her into Lily's car, Dr. Okonkwo came out to say goodbye. "You're one of the strongest people I've ever met," the doctor said. Rosalie shook her head. "I didn't feel strong. I felt trapped. Strength isn't feeling fearless. It's being terrified and speaking anyway." Dr. Okonkwo handed her a card. "My personal number. Call me if you need anything, medical or otherwise." "Thank you," Rosalie said, "for believing me. I always believed you." The apartment in Evanston was small and bare, but it had windows that let in light and doors that Rosalie controlled. Lily had bought basic furniture. A bed, a couch, a small table. Liam had installed extra locks on all the doors and windows. Their mother had stocked the kitchen with food and filled the bathroom with supplies. When Rosalie walked in, she stood in the middle of the living room and just breathed. "It's perfect," she whispered. "It's a work in progress," Lily said. "No, it's perfect." Rosalie turned to her sister, tears streaming. "It's mine." That night, Rosalie slept in her own bed in her own space for the first time in 3 years. She slept with her hand on her belly, feeling her daughter kick and turn, and whispered promises into the darkness. "I'm going to keep you safe. I'm going to teach you that you're worth more than someone else's control. I'm going to show you what strength looks like." The trial was set for 3 months later, which meant Rosalie would testify while her daughter was less than a month old. The prosecutor came to meet with her several times to prepare. Victoria Okafor was brilliant, strategic, and completely unwilling to let Dominic Ashcroft walk free. "His defense is going to try to paint you as unstable," Victoria explained during one prep session. "They're going to say the pregnancy made you irrational, that you were having dizzy spells, that the fall was an accident and Dominic is being persecuted. What do I say to that? You tell the truth, calmly, clearly. You don't let them make you angry or defensive. You just tell the jury exactly what happened. I'm scared." "Good, that means you understand the stakes. But Rosalie, we have evidence most survivors never get. We have footage. We have medical testimony. We have your statement. This isn't just your word against his. This is the truth with receipts." Rosalie nodded. "I want to do this. I need to do this. Then we'll make sure you're ready." 8 weeks after her fall, Rosalie went into labor. It was fast and terrifying and beautiful. Lily held one hand. Her mother held the other, and when her daughter finally entered the world with a cry that sounded like defiance and hope, Rosalie sobbed with joy and relief and overwhelming love. "She's perfect," the nurse said, placing the baby on Rosalie's chest. "Clara," Rosalie whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead. "Your name is Clara, and you're going to grow up knowing you're strong and loved and free." Clara had her mother's eyes and her grandmother's determined chin and lungs that announced she had arrived and the world better pay attention. Dominic's attorney requested to delay the trial given the birth. Victoria objected. The judge sided with the prosecution. The trial would proceed as scheduled. 2 weeks after Clara was born, Rosalie walked into the Cook County Courthouse with her daughter in her arms and her family beside her. The courtroom was packed. Press, supporters, observers who'd been following the case. And at the defense table, Dominic, in a suit that cost more than some people's cars, trying to look sympathetic and failing. The trial lasted a week. The prosecution presented the footage. The jury watched in complete silence as Dominic grabbed Rosalie, as she pulled away as she fell, as he stood there and did nothing. Several jurors wiped away tears. Dr. Okonkwo testified about the injuries and their inconsistency with an accidental fall. Maya Park testified about the deleted footage in the cover-up. Keisha Marshall testified about the stapler and the pattern of violence. Lily testified about watching her sister disappear into fear. And then Rosalie took the stand. She wore a simple blue dress, no makeup, just truth. The prosecutor walked her through her testimony gently, methodically. "Tell the jury about your marriage to Dominic Ashcroft." So she did, all of it. The courtship that felt like love but was really control. The isolation, the rules, the tracking, the financial dependence, the verbal abuse, the escalation, and the night of October 15th. "Tell the jury what happened." Rosalie took a breath, looked at the jury, told them everything. When she got to the part about Dominic's hands on her shoulders, his words about her being a liability, her voice shook but didn't break. "I was terrified," she said. "Not just for me, for my daughter. I tried to get away from him, and when I pulled back I lost my balance. I fell, and he just watched. He could have caught me, but he stepped back. He let me fall. Why do you think he did that?" Dominic's attorney objected. Speculation. I'll rephrase, the prosecutor said. What did you see on his face in that moment before you fell? Rosalie met Dominic's eyes across the courtroom. He looked away. Calculation, she said. He was deciding whether I was worth saving. The defense tried to discredit her. They brought up the pregnancy, suggested hormones and instability. They suggested she was exaggerating, looking for a payout, turning a tragic accident into a criminal case. But they couldn't explain the footage. They couldn't explain the deleted files. They couldn't explain the pattern. And when the jury returned after 4 hours of deliberation, their verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Dominic's face crumpled. His attorney whispered something urgent. But it was over. Sentencing happened 2 weeks later. The judge looked at Dominic with something close to contempt. You had every advantage in life, she said. Wealth, education, opportunity. And you used those advantages to control and harm a woman who trusted you. You isolated her from her family. You stripped away her autonomy. And when she tried to assert herself, you hurt her and your unborn child. Then you tried to cover it up using your money and power. She paused. This court sentences you to 8 years in state prison. You will also be subject to a permanent restraining order. You will have no contact with the victim or her child. And you will be required to pay restitution for medical expenses and ongoing therapy. 8 years. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. It was accountability. It was consequence. It was the world finally saying, your money doesn't make you untouchable. Rosalie sat in the gallery with Clara asleep in her arms and let the tears fall. Not because she was sad. Because she was finally, truly, completely free. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Rosalie made a brief statement, her voice steady. I'm speaking today for every person who's ever felt trapped in a relationship built on control instead of love. I'm speaking for everyone who's been told they're crazy or difficult or too sensitive when they tried to name abuse. I'm speaking for the people who are still silent because they don't think anyone will believe them. She looked directly into the cameras. I believe you. Your fear is real. Your pain is valid. And there is life on the other side of this. It's hard. It's terrifying. But it's yours. And that makes it worth fighting for. The video clip went viral within hours. Domestic violence hotlines reported a 300% increase in calls that week. Women started sharing their own stories with the hashtag Rosalie's Courage. And slowly, conversation by conversation, the silence began to break. 6 months after the trial, Rosalie sat in her small apartment in Evanston watching Clara take her first wobbly steps. The apartment wasn't small anymore. It was home. Filled with photos and Clara's toys and furniture, Rosalie had chosen herself. She'd started teaching dance again. Just 1 class a week at a community center. Trauma survivors, women rebuilding their lives, moving their bodies, reclaiming space. It was healing for all of them. Lily visited twice a week. Liam had moved to Chicago and lived 10 minutes away. Their mother came up once a month and stayed for weekends, spoiling Clara and cooking meals and reminding Rosalie that family was the thing that held you together when everything else fell apart. Maya Park had lost her job, but Sienna had helped her find work at a nonprofit that supported domestic violence survivors. She was training to be a victim advocate. Dr. Okonkwo stopped by occasionally, always claiming she just wanted to check on Clara, but really checking on Rosalie too. And Gabrielle Monroe had quietly left Chicago, her reputation in crisis management permanently damaged by her role in trying to bury the truth. One evening, as Rosalie rocked Clara to sleep, her daughter's tiny hand wrapped around her finger, she thought about how far she'd come. From the girl who fell in love with a lie, to the woman who fell down the stairs, to the survivor who stood up in court and spoke truth, to the mother who was teaching her daughter that love should feel like freedom, not chains. The journey had been brutal. The scars, both visible and invisible, would always be there. But so would the strength, so would the voice, so would the unshakable knowledge that she had survived the worst thing she could imagine and come out the other side still breathing, still fighting, still capable of joy. Clara's eyes fluttered closed. Rosalie kissed her forehead and whispered the words that had become her daily prayer. You will never doubt your worth. You will never silence yourself for someone else's comfort. You will never believe that love and control are the same thing. I promise you that. And Rosalie kept her promises now. All of them. Let me tell you what this story teaches us. What Rosalie's journey reveals about life, about strength, about the kind of courage that doesn't look like fearlessness, but looks like speaking when your voice shakes. First lesson. Silence protects abusers, not victims. Every time Rosalie stayed quiet, every time she made excuses, every time she told her family she was fine when she wasn't, she gave Dominic more power. The moment she spoke the truth, his power began to crumble. Your silence is not keeping you safe. Your voice is. Second lesson. Isolation is a weapon. Dominic didn't start with violence. He started by cutting Rosalie off from everyone who loved her. He made her dependent on him financially, emotionally, socially. That's not love, that's strategy. If someone in your life is slowly removing everyone else from your world, that's not protection. That's control. Third lesson. The abuse doesn't start with a fist. It starts with small things. What you wear, who you talk to, when you sleep, how you spend your time. By the time it escalates to physical violence, the victim has already been conditioned to accept control as normal. If you're walking on eggshells in your own home, that's abuse, even if there are no bruises. Fourth lesson. Belief matters. Dr. Okonkwo believed Rosalie. Maya Park believed the evidence. Lily believed her sister's fear. Detective Chen believed survivors deserve justice. That belief created a chain of support that saved Rosalie's life. If someone tells you they're being hurt, believe them. Don't wait for proof. Don't wait for bruises. Believe them. Fifth lesson. Money and power don't excuse violence. Dominic thought his wealth made him untouchable. He thought he could buy silence and bury truth. And for a while, it worked. But ultimately, evidence doesn't care about your bank account. Justice might take longer for the powerful, but it's still possible. Don't let someone's status convince you they're above accountability. Sixth lesson. Healing isn't linear. Rosalie didn't walk out of that courtroom completely whole. She still had nightmares. She still flinched at loud voices. She still had moments of fear and doubt. But she also had moments of joy and peace and strength. Recovery isn't about being perfect. It's about being free. Seventh lesson. One voice can create a movement. Rosalie spoke up. Maya preserved evidence. Sienna published truth. And thousands of people found courage to tell their own stories. Your voice matters more than you know. Your story could be the one that gives someone else permission to save themselves. Eighth lesson. You are not responsible for someone else's violence. Dominic tried to blame Rosalie. He said she embarrassed him, stressed him out, made him lose control. That's a lie. Adults are responsible for their own actions. You didn't cause the abuse. You can't fix the abuser. You can only save yourself. Ninth lesson. There is life after trauma. Rosalie rebuilt. She found home. She found herself. She became a mother on her own terms. The abuse didn't define her. It was something that happened to her, not something that became her. If you're in the middle of darkness right now, know this. There is light ahead. There is life ahead. There is you ahead, whole and free and strong. 10th lesson. Love should feel like freedom, not captivity. Real love doesn't track your phone. Real love doesn't isolate you from family. Real love doesn't leave bruises or demand silence or make you smaller. If the person who claims to love you is making your world smaller instead of bigger, that's not love, and you deserve better. Have you ever stayed silent when you should have spoken? Have you ever watched someone's light dim and didn't know how to help? Have you ever thought leaving was impossible until you finally did it? Drop your truth in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear tonight. If you're in a situation like Rosalie's right now, please hear me. It's not your fault. You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. And you're not alone. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24 hours a day at 1-800-799-7233. They can help you create a safety plan. They can connect you with resources. They can listen without judgment. If you can't call because your phone is monitored, you can chat online. If you can't do that safely, you can reach out to a trusted friend or family member, or a doctor, or a teacher, or a coworker, someone who will believe you. And please know this. The most dangerous time in an abusive relationship is when you're trying to leave. Don't leave without a plan. Don't leave without support. Don't announce you're leaving. Just go. Quietly. Safely. With help. You deserve to live without fear. You deserve to make your own choices. You deserve love that doesn't hurt. And for those of you who aren't in the situation but know someone who might be, Don't ignore the signs. Don't wait for them to ask for help. Reach out. Say, I'm worried about you. Say, I'm here whenever you need me. Say, I believe you. Those 3 words, I believe you, they can save a life. Heavenly Father, we come before you one final time tonight with hearts full of gratitude and grief and hope. We thank you for Rosalie's courage. We thank you for every person who stood with her when standing was dangerous. We thank you for justice, imperfect as it is in this world, but still present, still possible. Lord, we lift up every person watching this who is living in fear right now. Surround them with your protection. Give them wisdom to know when to speak and when to stay silent for their safety. Connect them with people who will help, who will believe, who will fight alongside them. We pray for every person who's on the other side of trauma, rebuilding, healing, wondering if joy is still possible. Remind them that you make all things new, that what was broken can be made whole, that scars are proof of survival, not shame. And Lord, we pray for change, for systems that believe survivors, for consequences that match crimes, for a world where power doesn't protect predators, for families that teach children that love is gentle, kind, and free. We ask all this in your precious and holy name. Amen. If this story moved you, if Rosalie's voice gave you courage, if you believe that truth matters more than power, then I need you to do something right now. Hit that like button, not just for the algorithm, though that helps too. Hit it for every survivor who spoke up, for every person who preserved evidence when it would have been easier to look away, for every family member who believed when belief cost them something. Share this video. Send it to someone who needs hope, someone who's in the middle of their own battle, someone who thinks they're the only one, someone who needs to know that speaking up is worth it. Your share could literally save a life. Subscribe to Keith Smith Golden Narrations, because we're building something here, a community that tells stories that matter, stories that heal, stories that remind you that you're not alone in this world, stories about real courage, real strength, real transformation. And drop a comment right now. Tell me what hit you hardest in this story. Tell me what lesson you're taking with you. Tell me if you've ever had to find strength you didn't know you had. Tell me if you know a Rosalie or a Lily or a Maya. Tell me if this story changed something in you. Your engagement with this video, your likes, your shares, your comments, they tell YouTube that this story matters, that stories about survivors matter, that truth matters, and the more people who see this, the more lives we can touch. This is Keith Smith, and you've been part of something important tonight. You didn't just watch a video, you witnessed testimony. You honored survival. You participated in the breaking of silence. Rosalie Winters walked through fire and came out holding her daughter and her freedom. If she can do that, you can face whatever battle is in front of you. Don't let anyone make you smaller. Don't let fear silence you forever. And don't ever believe that your voice doesn't matter. It does. You do. Until next time, stand strong, speak truth, and remember that the most powerful thing you can do in this world is refuse to disappear. God bless you all.